Eric, before you mentioned power, and of all the things at this stage in our life, if we think about doing box jumps and these kettlebell snatches, it probably is the thing we're maybe the least motivated to do. The last year and a half, I was at F45 and I did 500 straight workouts, and then I had tennis elbows, so I quit and I went back to the regular gym and lifting weights. And now the thought of going back to power moves, I'm like, it's not something I probably really do on my own. I might do it in a class, but it's important. I just did the Manitou incline a few days ago, which was 2,678 steps, and I did it in 45 minutes, and I trained for life. I didn't train for that. But I know the power is important. So what would you say to someone, our age and older about how do we begin to incorporate power moves?
Okay, so first thing is just the rate at which you move something. So if you're first, you have to be good at moving. All right. If you add speed or resistance to bad movement, it's just going to get worse. But if you can move well, right, then what we're going to do is the easiest way to gradually introduce it is work your tempos. So instead of where most people go in, and let's say, okay, I'll use a bench press. Instead of just going, I'm going to come down 1,000, 1,000, 2,000, 3, pause for a second, and then 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 2,000, 3 up. What I want you to do is control that down, pause for a second, and then I want you to put that thing up as fast as you possibly can while you're maintaining perfect form. Can you do that? And so come down slow, pause for a second, up as fast as you can. And with the clients I see in person, the few people I do still see in person, I actually have a device called a velocity-based training device where we attach that to the bar, or we can even attach it to a waist belt, and it'll give us feedback. It has an app that'll give feedback to show you how fast you're moving. And so now you can actually challenge yourself to see that. So that's the easy, low-hanging fruit. So even if it doesn't move fast, but the interesting thing, if you think about moving it fast, it still has the same result. You're recruiting a different motor units in terms of your nervous system. You're recruiting a different fiber types in terms of your muscle. You're actually recruiting more fiber. So talk about building muscle. It's a great way to build muscle at a quicker rate. Then the next entry point is medicine balls. Okay, and the best things, get big soft medicine balls, and they don't have to be heavy. The idea is speed. And so 6-8 pound medicine balls, and just doing simple slams into the ground, starting in kneeling postures, is the best way to do it. Just in a nice tall kneeling posture or half kneeling posture, just take that thing as high as you can reach it and slam it into the ground. Now, here's what you get. You don't need a fancy velocity-based training device. The louder that sounds when it hits the ground, and the more it bounces back up, the more power you've produced. And nothing makes me crazier when I see people in a boot camp class, and they're taking the medicine balls, and essentially they're just falling out of their hands. Like, there's no oomph, there's no intent in there. Like, I want you to put that thing through the floor. And then people, like, it's fun, it's engaging, it's stress management. Like, put that thing through the floor, make noise. And so that's another great way to do it. You can do the same thing with battle ropes. Take battle ropes, instead of just going to try to feel the burn and get tired. Take them and make like you're riding the biggest horse you can imagine. You're gonna rip those ropes up and then rip them back down, and you're gonna make a big ripple and wave in the ropes. How high can you make that wave? Like, make it as high as you can and slam those ropes into the ground. All that's just speed rate of force production and speed. And that's great ways to start to introduce power. That's one side of it. The other thing is that we do not train. And that's where all our injuries occur. And this is even with athletes, is we need to learn how to absorb force, how to decelerate. Okay. So whether it's an athlete who plants and rolls their ankle, or plants and pulls their hamstring, or it's the person playing pickleball who rolls and buckles their knee because they don't have the ability to decelerate, or someone who's even older, our ability to get our foot down in time so we don't fall and we can absorb force is incredibly important. That's rate of force production. There's simple things you could do. Basically balance in an athletic stance on one foot, and can you jump from your right to your left and reestablish that balance, and how long does that take? From the time your foot hits the ground to the time you can kind of rebalance, that's kind of our metric. The shorter we can make that time, the more efficient you are in deceleration. Just learning to decelerate is probably one of the best things you can do in terms of injury prevention.
You've motivated me.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm going to say I picked it back up because, as Eric said before, speed is one of the things that we can do to change the just the overload on us. And I've been going slower. In fact, you probably remember back to the days of the super slow training. So
Oh, yeah.
slower stuff, but you've motivated me. I'm gonna start picking up the pace a bit, and I know it makes a difference. I can feel it in my energy. Mark, you had a question?
Yeah. Eric, is there a sweet spot or is it different for everybody? You've mentioned sweet spot a few times in here. What's the number of times, the length? When does hormesis kick in? What's your kind of take on that?
So it's way before most people think, right? Unless you're really training for body composition, like I got to get beach fit, right? Which is like 2% of the people, right? Other than that, right? You should walk out of the gym feeling like you could have done more. You should walk out feeling like I still had at least 3-4 more sets in me, especially if you're training for speed and power. You could feel like I could have done that workout again. If you feel like that, you've probably hit the sweet spot, right? Now, that's going to be different for each person. And as your capacity grows, that endpoint will grow. But the more intensely you train, the less you need to train. I mean, my strength workouts are, if they're 30 minutes from beginning to end, are a lot. But when I'm going, I'm going. And I have jumps and I have medicine ball slams and I'm moving explosively. And so I don't need all that much because when I'm done, I'm not shot. If I'm doing an arm workout, yeah, you can walk out and have your arms tired. Fine. Nobody ever died from an arm workout. But if you're working for full body, like capacities, walk out way before you think that you're done.
And the number of times a week would obviously vary, but is there a sweet spot for that?
Minimum is 2. You're not going to get, I've never seen anybody make significant changes in 1. Now, 1 is better than none, but 2 is where you can start to see some changes. 4 is about the max that I've seen, unless you're making them super short. If you're going to do it in like kind of snacks and you're going to do it in 20, 30 minutes, then yeah, you could probably handle more than 4. But somewhere between 2 and 4, and that's usually more dictated by life than it is the science of it.
Yeah. So what is your take on exercise snacks? There seems to be a lot of research on that. And that was part of some of the notes. If it was something that you had brought up, let's touch on that.
Yeah, I think it's the way we need to go. I think our fitness industry has done a terrible job of giving you these recommendations of that you need to go join a special place and you have to drive your car there and wear a special outfit and you have to be there for a certain number of time for this to actually count as fitness. And it's insane. And there's research that shows that if you did 3 10-minute walks versus 1 30-minute walk, not only did you have the same result, but you had higher compliance. And it also what happens is it increases your what's called your SPA, your spontaneous physical activity, because now it's just more of what you do as opposed to like what Kelly said, it's just in this silo that you forget about the other 23 hours. And so it is huge. And it also proves to the point you don't need that much. You don't need that much because most people are trying to get it all. Now, for some people, unfortunately, look, the reality is if I'm training a man or woman who's got to get on a 6 a.m. bus to be in the city, work all day, and they get home at 7 o'clock and they can just muster enough an energy to exercise, they have to compact it into one, big bite. But for the people that have the ability to do it, I would much rather have that spread out in smaller doses throughout the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially at our age. I mean, it breaks up our day to have little fitness breaks from sitting, which is the new smoking. We're sitting way too much. Eric, you mentioned assessing and testing, which I love. For those people who maybe do work out at home and they don't have access to a personal trainer or a gym, what are some things that they can do to measure their progress at home to see that they are making benefits or not?
Okay, so let's look at, first from a movement standpoint. You should be able to keep your legs straight and be able to touch your toes. You should be able to get your arms up overhead so where you can kind of cover your ears, and then you should be able to reach back and kind of extend to where if I drew a line from your ear to your ankle, you can kind of get some extension back.
Wait, what is that? What do I got to do here?
Okay. Your arms up overhead so you're covering your ears. Now, if I asked you if you're standing to reach back with behind you, like almost a little mini back bend, obviously if you're standing. Yeah. Imagine a line. If I was staring at you from the side, from your ear to your ankle, you should be able to get behind that line. So you can create some extension there. And you can do this. You can do this, and you can do it pain-free, more importantly. And then if you take your hands out in front of you and just kind of hold your hands together with your arms locked straight and you rotate as far as you can to the right and left, you should be able to turn your chest to where it more or less lines up with your hips, about 90 degrees of rotation each way. And then you should be able to reach your hand over your head to touch your shoulder blade. You should be able to reach your hand behind your back to touch your shoulder blade. All right. Can you do those? Those are the kind of the big things that I want to look for. Obviously, I can break it down and look into a little bit more, but those are the big movements. If you can't do those, it's going to restrict your ability to do some certain movements and certain exercises I'm not going to prescribe for you. There's three main areas where we lose our mobility, and you can just thank your desk and chair from this. It's your ankles, it's your hips, and it's your trunk and T-spine, your rib cage and T-spine. And so if you're going to look to get mobility in three areas, those are the three, and they'll show up in one of those tests that I just gave you. In terms of some fitness tests, there are certain things that they have different markers for male versus female. That kind of falls into what we talked about with our belt test that we look for you to be able to do in terms of being able to do a push-up, and in terms of being able to hang from a bar for 60 seconds would be a good thing. When you're able to do good, clean push-up with your legs locked, a straight line from your ears to your ankles, from your chest to the floor, all the way up. Can you do that? And then how many can you do? There's even correlations with how many push-ups you could do and your longevity. Another correlation is the reason why the hanging is so important, because there's huge correlations with grip strength and longevity. And so that's why that's important. And so being able to squat down, be able to get down to the floor and back up, incredibly important. Can you do that? And how do you do that without assistance? Is another movement factor, but it's also in terms of functionality. Can you do that? Can you balance on one leg for at least 10 seconds minimum, ideally 20 or 30 seconds? Those are kind of all the movement categories.